Good day everyone, this is Jai Khan from our University channel, and today, as you can see, I'm here in this amazing book fair 2026, and now I'm going to have a discussion with you people regarding the books that you should read and the books which I recommend. Well, first of all, there are a great deal of books that you can choose from. It largely depends upon your choice, your age, But first book that I will recommend you to read, which will give you a great idea about how the reality works and what you should do, you shouldn't do, is the Holy Quran. Now, why should I recommend you a religious book or a book that is that you should have in your possession? Well, my thought on this is that as we go through life, you will experience different sorts of things, and there will be a requirement for you to figure out between the right and wrong. So as it is called the criterion of right and wrong, so I recommend you this book greatly. And there are numerous reasons for which I recommend you this book. First of all, when I used to be young, I used to read the storybooks, and they used to give a whole bunch of ideas. But at that point of time, my understanding about the reality, about society, about what I should do and what I shouldn't do was limited. But as I grew older and as I experienced a lot of the things, and as I tried different things, I understood, about some of the aspects of our reality. So my first recommendation will be for you to read the Holy Quran. That's number one. And if you can't read books, these days everybody is busy. I stay busy in offices. There used to be a time when I used to be a university student, I could spend the whole day here in this book fair. Nowadays it's not possible. So, so you don't have enough time. You could go online and you could search YouTube. There are Bengali translations, there are English translations. You could choose from a great deal of variety. And I particularly recommend you to read time and time again Surah Hud, or listen to Surah Hud. It's one of the best chapter of the Quran that tells you, why good things happen to bad people and bad things happen to good people. So that's my first recommendation to you. So read that book. Number one. Number two is, of course, the classics. Every language has got a collection of literature that can be regarded as classics. As I move around this amazing book fair 2026, I understand the fact that there's a great deal of youngsters who like to read books, who are interested in reading books, but unfortunately I think the books that they're reading are not the right ones. Because if there is a book that is entertaining you to a great extent, and making you feel good, but it doesn't teach you anything, I think that book should be abandoned, because you're reading that book and you're getting nowhere, you're like a cattle. So I think it would be a bad idea to go for the entertaining books. I would recommend you to read the books which are classics. By that I mean, the writings written by Kazi Nazrul Islam, Rabindranath Tagore, Sharat Chandra Chattopadhyay, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, Bibhutibhushan Bandyopadhyay, these sort of writers, they will give you a huge deal of insights about the practicality of life. And if you're a village boy, if you're born in a village, if you're a fan of nature, then I recommend you to read the books of Bibhutibhushan Bandyopadhyay. Particularly, I would recommend you to read books like Pother Pachali, and these sort of books. And how would you choose a book? It's a very challenging question. Well, my advice to you will be, it largely depends upon your temper. I mean, and the amount and the time you have allotted to, read the book. So if you have a huge amount of time in your hands to read a book, then you can go for the novels, the larger books in general. But if you are, if you're very busy and you don't have too much time to read, then I would recommend you to go through the storybooks. There's a great deal of information compressed in the stories. And here I also again recommend you to read the classic writers, the popular writers of Bengali literature. They will widen your view and enlighten you about how our society works, how the economy works, how everything works in general, and you'll be enlightened. So one of the greatest tragedy that happens in Bangladesh, most of the people and most of the students, they tend to read the useless books first. It's a tragedy because these useless books tend to make them ignorant, and they get a huge deal of entertainment out of them. So it's tragic, but that's the reality here. So go with the classic books. That's my first advice. And then if you're a youngster, if you're young, at my age you're very, very choosy. At my age I don't read books without reasons. If I choose a book, then there's a great deal of reason behind it. So you got to be a little bit careful when you're old like me. Okay, so my advice to you will be, to go through this book. But if you're young, you could read books, story books. There's a great deal of fiction books. But in general, as a general tendency, I don't like fiction books. I'm interested in non-fiction books. The books which are ingrained in reality. Which gives you a very good impression about how really society works. And the more you will read and the more you will understand. Like in 2023, I read a book called Fooled by Randomness. It was a good book. I think it was written by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. Yes, he wrote that book. So in that book, he brought in a very radical idea. You know what his idea was? So there was a great deal of things, that were happening around me that I didn't have any sorts of explanation, And I was, thinking like, why is this sort of things happening, And why is that sort of things happening? It shouldn't be happening like this, right? So later on, I read this book, and it was a book which gave me a great idea about, that there is an intervention of luck. Whenever you are engaging in something, whenever you're doing something, and if you're looking for a result, there is an intervention of luck. There's a great deal of people who think that, working hard can change your life to a great extent, and if you try, you will get better, but that doesn't really work, if your luck is bad. So, and there's a huge deal of intervention of luck. Okay, so you'll have to be willing to choose these books a little bit carefully. So that was the book, that changed my life radically. And I think sometimes you should read books, that changes your view of the world, or view of reality radically. But it largely depends upon your choosing. I recommend, of course, the classic books to everyone. But if you're young, then you can, read some of the fiction books. Fictions will open up. They will be, like, for example, when I was young, maybe at your age, I used to read science fiction books, and science fiction books were very good, in the sense that they entertain me a lot. And when you're young, and if you're trying to build up the reading habit, what could be better than a book that entertains you, right? So I graded a huge number of books which were science fiction, and they were fun, you know. But as I read some of the non-fiction books, and I experienced some of the things in my reality, then I understood the fact that maybe fiction books were not a good thing for me. So so you should go for the non-fiction books, and that would be good enough. So if you are a science fan, maybe you're a science student, I think science fiction books will be beneficial for you. It will probably help you focus on your studies, help you learn new things. All right, so these were my recommendations. There's a loud announcement going on, so I'm telling you bye bye.